Greetings everyone, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, here to bring you another retro review from past seasons of The Loud House. But today, I'm not here alone. With me today is one of my good friends, and another one of my former review buddies from the Littlest Pet Shop series from RT3.
That's me, yeah. Hey guys, it's me, Downloads Bacon. How's it going?
It's going pretty good, because much like my review with theme tunes, this is the first time in about 5 years that we've reviewed something together, and today we will be reviewing one of our favorite Loud House episodes, starring one of our favorite characters, Lori Loud.
Yes, sir. She's my favorite sister from all of them, so it's gonna be fun.
Indeed, but which episode is it? Well, it's gonna be that classic one from Season 2, where Lori finally gets Clyde off her back, but she soon comes to regret it. Today's episode is titled, Change of Heart. First, we will discuss the plot, and then our thoughts and critiques with our final scores, so let's get right into it. The episode begins with Lori finally getting fed up with Clyde acting so weird around her, and this prompts Clyde to undergo some training with Leni to stop his awkward behavior. Lori assumes Clyde has fallen for Leni based on their interactions together, and although this makes Lori happy at first, she begins trying to win back Clyde's affection. Ultimately, she realizes what she needs to do is apologize for how she treated him in the past, which causes Clyde to pass out. So much for all that training. Lincoln clears up the misconceptions about Clyde liking Leni, and that his friend's love for Lori never stopped. The episode ends with Clyde waking up to see two Loris standing in front of him and goes full robot mode, much to Lori's satisfaction. Well, that concludes the plot of the episode, so now we come to our thoughts and critiques. The first thing we'll talk about is the biggest positive of the episode. It would be Lori Loud, and I'll just say for the record, before Season 3 came out, this was definitely my favorite episode of hers, and well, what else can I say? This really was the pinnacle of who she was when it came to her relationship with Clyde. Now, I don't know if I'm the only one who noticed this, but it seems like the relationship between Lori and Clyde is very similar to that of Laura and Steve from Family Matters.
I think so. I can see it.
Yeah, because the thing is, Clyde is that awkward kid who really loves Lori, and Lori just can't stand him for the obvious reasons. Awkwardness, nosebleeds, robot mode. I really can't blame her for getting super annoyed with him and just wanting him to just get out of her life forever. However, that doesn't stop Clyde from being incredibly thoughtful by giving Lori all these gifts and writing those compassionate letters. I mean, even though Lori knows she's never going to fall in love with him for the obvious reasons, and she thinks all this affection is just a waste of time and a nuisance, Clyde has those genuine feelings and really believes one day Lori is going to return the love that he gives to her. So I guess we'll say this is the episode where Lori finally had that self-reflection about how much she takes Clyde for granted, and when she reflects upon all those past memories, you can tell that she really messed up and really had to find a way to get back, I guess, her old love interest, so to speak.
Yeah, I can see that. It's pretty interesting with that. The gifts that he gave her were pretty sweet, though. They're really endearing.
Yeah, I don't know many guys that will go out of their way to make a snow sculpture that huge and write all these letters and giving out teddy bears that say, I love you forever. I mean, that really comes from the heart. And just the way Lori reacts to those gifts is just, must you put him down so hard.
She puts him down really hard just to build him back up again.
And that's exactly what she wanted to do when she wanted to give him the lemonade and start wearing that scarf he gave her, and of course trying to bribe him with some comic books. But unfortunately, she started to really believe that Clyde had given up on her and went for Leni, which I guess, to be fair, if you think about it from her perspective, why would he ever want to waste time with someone who's not going to love her when he can go for a girl that clearly doesn't have a problem with him at all?
I can see the logic behind that.
And this all leads to Lori trying to win back Clyde's attention by going out of her way to dress up like Leni, and that is when she gets called out by all of her sisters, with them saying, why do you care so much about winning Clyde back? You never care for his gifts, you always stomp on his heart, so do you like him or something?
So I think it's kind of interesting that they have observed all this that has happened, and yeah, it does bring up the big question of how Lori does really feel about Clyde's relationship.
I would just go out on a limb and say she was probably jealous of Leni getting all this attention because she was so used to getting all this attention from Clyde, never really appreciated until he stopped giving her all this attention. I guess that's what she wanted. She wanted to rekindle what she never really learned to appreciate, and I guess when you're put in a bad position, and when you have your sisters who are pretty much calling you out on all your misdeeds that you've done to this guy, you do know that it's time to own up and make that formal apology that has been long overdue, and then just come to grips with the idea that he likes Leni and she just has to move on, even though that never was the case to begin with.
No, I will give Lori a lot of points for that, for really being mature and instead of trying to dress like Leni and do this whole crazy plan of hers that would have been maybe a little too cringy to watch, but at least with her, she knows what she needs to do, and she did it. I'll give her a lot of points on that.
But you know, speaking of giving characters points, we have to give points to our next big positive, Leni. Now, even though we don't know which 10 states she's blocking out of her mind and how she can't recite the alphabet after the letter P, I am going to say that this is another episode where she proves to not just be a complete airhead, and she really helped Clyde with her training, such as it was. And I would say that if it really was going down the way Lori thought it was, I can actually see Clyde and Leni getting into some sort of, pairing, so to speak. But I would say in their case, it would come off as a little bit more normal.
Yeah, I mean, their interactions were pretty nice, and I gotta say, to give a little defense to Leni, after the letter P, it does get pretty difficult. Just saying.
Huh, thank goodness, I thought I was the only one thinking it.
Yeah, man. I mean, the fact that they know 40 states is pretty interesting as well. 48. Wait, not 40. I mean, I only know about 20.
Well, 3 words for you. Read a map. Anyway, as far as Leni's training went, it was pretty good for the most part. I would say it was about 50-50. I mean, it half worked, and it also didn't work, but I'll touch upon more of that as soon as we get towards the latter half of this video. But now we come to a positive that I would have, not sure if you share as well, but I have to talk about Clyde. Now, I will say in hindsight, this episode was the pinnacle for who his character was when it came to the relationship with Lori, and it really showed a side of him that we never saw too often up to this point in season 2. Most of the time, we saw him bleeding and shutting himself down like a robot whenever he was just in the same room with Lincoln's older sister. But we come to find out in this episode, his feelings for Lori ran a lot deeper than what just seemed to be your stereotypical crush. I mean, the fact that he would do so much for her and continue to do so much for her despite knowing that he's probably never going to have those feelings returned to him proves how selfless of a character he can be. And hey, I think he would probably take a literal bullet for her, even though I think Lori would never take the bullet for him.
Probably, yeah, I can see that. With Clyde, I can give him a lot of points on that. He was pretty interesting in this one. At least he saw that he had a problem and attempted to try to better himself with that.
Indeed, I greatly respected him in this episode for really trying his hardest to make himself come off as more normal in front of Lori. But sadly, that is where we come to the negative parts of the episode. So, would you like to take this first one?
Yeah, I guess I'll take this first one here. At least a little bit of the gripe that I have with this episode is just, I guess the overall plot isn't exactly my favorite. And because I've seen this plot being done before from other shows, and now I'll say that this one, Lighthouse does a pretty good job with it, but it does come off a little weird when the fact that Bobby is not in the episode at all, or even that much mentioned. I think he's only mentioned once. So this plot feels a little weird. I wish I could articulate this a little bit better, but it's a good episode, but just the plot isn't exactly my favorite on this one.
Yeah, I sort of get what you mean. It would have been a little interesting if Bobby did have some involvement in this episode, but considering what happens in this season where he moves out of the city and about, 3 hours away from Lori, I don't think he would just be showing up just to help this conflict along. It would have been nice, but I can see why they couldn't work him in. But my one nitpick I have to this episode would be the fact that Clyde goes through all this training with Leni to stop the nosebleeds and the robo-talk, and yet when it's finally time for him to confront Lori for real, he starts bleeding and passes out. So just on the merits of the episode alone, it comes off like one of those endings where nothing really changed and it seemed like the status quo was going right back to where it was, and it just didn't end on the proper note that I would have wanted. I mean, it definitely worked out for Lori because she got the old Clyde back, but looking at it from the perspective of Clyde and as the viewer, nothing really changed, and it just, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of an issue. It just goes back to status quo in a way. I mean, it would have been nice for him to grow a little bit more as a character. Maybe be able to talk to Lori a little bit longer before the nosebleeds happened. That would have been nice, but I mean, he had it instantly, so.
Yeah, it is a bit of a downer, but I do have a bit of a headcanon theory on how his training was actually workable, and in hindsight of all the episodes that take place after this one, since this review is being recorded years after this one first aired, I'll say Leni's training worked, but something needed to trigger the effectiveness of said training. So just hear me out, and I know it may sound a little contrived, but here it goes. When Clyde fainted upon seeing the real Lori after talking to Leni, who was dressed like Lori, and when he saw two Loris standing in front of him when he woke up, he had a total and complete Lori Loud overload, which caused him to bleed and go full robot a lot longer and harder than usual. And this reaction was strong enough to break up all those crushed feelings he had for Lincoln's sister and effectively stopped him from acting so weird around her from there on out. I mean, if you think about the episodes that aired after this, such as Ghosted, he is acting completely normal around Lori as if he never had a crush on her at all. And then there's the episode Brave the Last Dance, where he has these romantic feelings for his classmates like Emma and Chloe, and the fact he never mentions Lori's name once or how he was once in love with her sort of seems to validate my theory. Like I said, it sounds a little contrived and maybe it's not the best, but given all the episodes following this and every single time Lori and Clyde are in the same room together, he's not passing out, he's not acting awkward. So, like I said, Leni's training may have worked, just not right away.
That is very interesting. So this episode, I guess, had more of an effect than I thought it did.
Yeah, like it had an effect, we just had to wait a little longer to see how it would work out. I don't know if I'm the only one who thought of it like this, but it sort of reminded me of that one episode of South Park where Cartman thought he blew a funny fuse when he saw the funniest thing ever and he couldn't laugh anymore. I would say in Clyde's case, he blew a Lori fuse after having double vision of Lori, and it was powerful enough for him to never fall in love with her again, if not make him forget he ever loved her to begin with.
That is very interesting, because I would probably go a little against it, but you do have some evidence for that. So I can see this being actually pretty brilliant, to be honest.
Yeah, but like I said, it's just a theory. Nothing has really been established by any of the main cast and crew. But as far as I'm concerned, it's in my headcanon, and I'm sticking to this theory unless someone can prove me wrong. There you go. Overall, this episode was simply amazing for the development of both Lori and Clyde. You come to sympathize with both of them for their respective reasons, and together they teach the very important lesson of how you should never take the good people in your life for granted. Some people may come off as annoying and you'd much rather see them keep their distance from you, but sometimes it's those very same annoying people that you come to appreciate later on when they stop doing all those nice things for you, even when they don't necessarily have to. I may not have liked the immediate ending where it seemed like Clyde went through all of Leni's training for nothing, but if you're willing to apply my personal headcanon theory on what happens following this episode, it's honestly not all that bad and everything worked out for the better. With that said, I give Change of Heart a 9.5 out of 10.
Alright, so this is going to be kind of interesting here with my final thoughts of this episode. Originally, I was going to rate this one kind of low or kind of in the middle ground of this one, since the plot itself isn't exactly my favorite, but the show itself handles it pretty well. I was going to kind of meet it in the middle, but with some interesting theories that have been presented to me, and just overall watching the episode again and appreciating Leni and the very nice things that Clyde did, my overall score, if I had to give, would probably be, I'm going to go with a 7 out of 10. It was pretty good. I enjoyed this one. And for handling a plot that I didn't like, they did a pretty good job.
Well, folks, that concludes our review of Change of Heart. Arguably, this one still stands, at least in my opinion, as one of Lori's best performances of Season 2. And with all things considered, it's hard for anyone to outright hate this episode. But hey, I'd like to see someone try to dismantle this one, to which I say, good luck to them. So, what did you guys think of it? Love it? Hate it? Something you would add? add, change, keep it as it is, let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to this channel for the latest Loud House content. That's going to do it for us. I'll be seeing you guys for the next video, but until then, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling,
And this is Dallas Bacon, so thanks, and thanks again.
and this is us signing off. Peace out, home slices.
Laters.